It's 6:34. We're going to be continuing on in our session. Registrar of Voters Redistricting, Mr. Fiore and Mr. Kinsler.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Lou Fiore, Democratic Registrar of Voters.
Tom Kinsler, 359 Washington Road, Registrar of Voters for the Republicans. We are here today to just give you a quick update on the goings-on regarding redistricting. And since several of you are new and haven't gone through this before, very few people have actually gone through it. Every 10 years, we put together, by state statute, federal law, based on the census data that they provide us every 10 years, we go through and rebalance the districts. Can you hear me okay? So this year, this is the current one that's going on now. It's been here for 10 years. You'll notice on this map some jigs and jags that go around. Those are results of attempts to balance the districts. So, for instance, this year we'll have a change of some sort, which we don't really know yet because we haven't gotten all the data, but with the new Barbara Jean complex, those streets, that area, adding to the population of District 4, that will affect District 2 and balancing out some streets down there. The Lou Fiore cutout that nobody ever understood. We do, but nobody else did. May need to change from district to district. So I wanted to show that to you because that's a balancing that we're required to do every 10 years, and we have a limited amount of time to do it, and we'll be starting on that. When are we starting?
It's hopefully tomorrow.
No.
So
Friday.
So let me start. What I'm going to do I don't do this very often. Usually I'm pretty well prepared with just crib notes, but I have so much data to share with you tonight. I'm actually going to read pretty much verbatim, which I normally don't do. It's a little uncomfortable for me to do it this way, but I don't want to mislead anyone or give you incorrect data. So if I can begin, and actually I'll give a copy of this to the town clerk so she can make sure it's in your minutes. Since redistricting is making the news, we wanted to provide you with an update and an outline of the needed implementation steps. I should also mention that I have personally been involved with this task twice before, in 1982 and 2002, so I've been through this gauntlet before. Didn't think I was going to do it a third time. Every 10 years, per the U.S. Constitution, state constitution, and our town charter, the various voting districts need to be rebalanced, redistricted, per population based on the census data. As of this past fall, the State Assembly received the official census data and has completed its work on redistricting all of the State Senate and State Assembly districts. There was no change to Enfield as it pertains to the 7th senatorial. There was a minor change as it pertains to the Enfield for the 58th and 59th State Assembly districts. 5 of the 6 streets that were partially in the 59th district have now been completely moved to the 58th district. The state has provided us with those changes, and by state statute, Tom Kinsler and I in the ROV office will have to make those changes in the state voter registration system by mid-March 2022. This is so that they take effect for the upcoming party convention delegate selection process and for the upcoming elections in August and November of 2022. I got pretty lucky. There's really some just minor changes, which we can do manually.
We should also add the note that East Windsor was adjusted.
Yeah, East Windsor picked up a lot of the 59th in their Warehouse Point area. As it pertains to the 5 federal congressional districts in the state, as of tonight, various plans have been submitted to the Connecticut State Supreme Court, who have assigned a special master to recommend a redistricting plan that will then be accepted by the state Supreme Court. The final completion date for that action, I believe, is around February 18th. At that time, we will know if Enfield remains in the 2nd congressional district. If we are moved out of that district, Registrar of Voters will have to implement that change, and every registered voter in the town of Enfield, approximately 26,000 people, will have to be notified, usually by some type of mailing. I don't think that's going to happen, but we wanted to mention it because it is the possibility, and we won't know till February 18th. As it pertains to the town, Assuming you want ROV to take the lead on this task as we have in the past, then our goal is to begin the work of creating a redistricting plan of the 4 town council districts in late January 2022 to be submitted to you by mid-May, right around the time that you're doing your budget, or clearly right after that, maybe your first meeting after you do your budget implementation. By federal statute, to the best of our ability, we need to balance out the districts by overall population, not by registered voters. This is a difficult task. I've done it twice before, as the census data is provided to us in census blocks, not by streets. And some of those blocks, as you can imagine, are split across council lines. So it's really a manual effort on Tom and ours to dissect that data and pull that out.
Give me a quick example.
An example would be if you looked at Green Manorville. That's, I think everybody knows where that is. That's one census block. That's pretty easy. We know how many people the census is going to tell us, 3,000, whatever. We don't have to touch that. We just record that. But take a look at the Mount Carmel neighborhood across the street. That's in multiple council districts, right? 2 and 4. That's one census block. So Tom and I are going to have to figure out how many houses are on a street, and then as long as we agree, we have to come up with a mathematical algorithm to add some to another census block and take some away. We're not doing another census. We have to use the census data. The town of Enfield is not doing a census in those split census blocks. So it is a manual effort. Any and all municipal redistricting changes must be approved by the town council, I believe via public hearing and a resolution. I think the town attorney could probably relate to that. In addition, during the upcoming November 2022 election, the Enfield residents must vote and hopefully approve the municipal redistricting plan as a referendum question, a requirement under our town charter. If passed, these changes will then be in effect for November 2023 municipal election and for all the future elections after that until 2033. Not a bad news.
Well, yeah.
First of all, we will need a town council member liaison assigned to us so that the council and the town manager will be kept in the loop on all the proposed changes. Thus, there's no surprises to you guys when we come in front of you with our recommendations, okay? I think it's very important, having gone through this before, that we have a town council liaison. They don't have to do a lot of the bull work with us, but it's someone that we would go to who would then report to you and just get them in the loop. It's very important. Things work better that way when that occurs.
Yeah.
Second, we will need a town staff member with knowledge of loading data into the town's GIS system and for assisting us with producing all the reports and maps. We have the census data and what they call shape files that get loaded up into our town's GIS system. And again, someone in that area would be able to assist us in creating the reports and the maps that we needed to do this work. We can't do it alone. We don't have access to the GIS system for that type of work, and we don't really know how to use that. So we really would need the town manager to assign someone on staff to help work with us on that. Thirdly, we will not budget for the postage and printing of the municipal change notifications at this time in our proposed 2022-2023 budget, which we're working on, because we have no idea how many changes we're going to do. So any number I put in there might be inaccurate. It could be too low or too high.
So if we have to notify every resident as opposed to a block of residents, it makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference. So at the last minute, we should know by the time you're getting ready to do your final budget implementation in mid-May, we will know by then pretty much what the impact's going to be, and hopefully it's minimal, so we might not have to do anything in the budget, or we might be coming to you with a quick budget adjustment in that proposed 2023 budget that you'll be working on soon. Because honestly, we just don't know what number to plug in there at this time. We haven't even started. That kind of wraps that up as far as, and if I talked too fast or have any.
One other thing. If the referendum that is by our charter that has to be done in November does not pass, it has to be redone again. And that's never happened, but, so I put a word out. If there's a way to word this particular referendum, which has to be done, in a way that makes it crystal clear that it's by state law, there's no dollars involved, something that makes it very simple for the voting public to understand by looking at it for the first time on voting day, that will not trip us up, because it has to happen, but the charter says it has to be approved in referendum, so there's a conflict there, and we don't want to have to go back to a second referendum. That's costly. And
We're one of the few towns that actually have to have the voters pass this type of administrative change by referendum question. Most towns, it's done by an ordinance or by the council or the first selectman or the mayor. certainly a public hearing has to take place. A public hearing would have to take place here too. But we're one of the few towns that actually have this in our charter that requires the voters to actually vote on this by referendum. And I think personally, I think it's just a leftover piece of the compromise that was done when the original town charter was put together. The town charter we're working under now in the mid-1960s.
We changed forms
Knowing all the people involved then that do that, I'm sure it was a compromise to keep everyone happy at the time. But I decided to mention it as a side, and I apologize. So we'll take any questions on the census. Is there any questions?
Mike?
Go ahead, Councilor Ludwig.
Thank you both. So 2 questions.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm glad we're one of the few towns that you vote on redistricting by referendum. It's important. I understand it's a little backwards, but I'm sorry, it's important. Redistricting now is so political, it's unbelievable. So I'm glad it's got to be on a referendum. I understand you actually could be voting for something one year and changing your district the next.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, in my opinion, we should be one of the towns that never change. We actually should be a model, actually, if you ask me. It shouldn't be done by a first selectman or anybody. It should be done by the people. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. But my question is, so when it comes to the budget, if you're right now, so say to your point, if as voters the entire town's in the 2nd congressional district, just say by some chance we're not, you have to now send, right, do you have to send, so any change in the local, so I'm meaning federal, state, and?
It's just, look, we have enough money to cover the federal change.
Okay, so what about state?
Yeah, we'd have enough money to cover that.
Oh, so you already have that.
The reason why we have that money in this year's budget, we would have to make that, if they change this out of the congressional district.
Got it.
We'd have to
Okay.
mail it now.
Perfect.
We only had one election last year. You would have to do a council transfer.
Got it.
So have it in that election worker bucket, but we do have
That
the money.
budget's really for if anyone, that 5 streets you mentioned?
Nope, the budget
all set
money's,
for that.
we're all set for that too. The budget
We
mo-
have to notify the whole town. If 2 becomes 1.
Right, exactly, I understand, yeah.
That would be the time we'd have to do it, and that's going to be a surprise.
And so can you say the 5 streets or no, not yet?
Yeah, sure. They're Avon Street Extension, Edwards Street, Beverly Street,
I'm sorry, those down. So Avon Street.
Avon Street Extension, Edwards Street, Beverly Street, the top half of, that condominium complex.
That's Old Farms.
Old Farms, thank you.
Okay.
And the north side of Middle Road,
That'll be what now?
all in the 59th.
59th.
I'm assuming all in the 58th.
That's all
58th.
moving.
Yeah,
Okay.
right now, it's cut out like this. The 59th goes across
Right.
and right over
Right,
it.
right.
It's just now going to absorb it. It's the most
So, and
logical.
so if they actually now, to just be clear in timing, delegates get set in the spring, they actually would be part of the 58th,
Yes,
right,
yes.
in the spring?
Yes.
And
yes.
so if there's a primary, they'd be voting whatever
Yes.
party?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. The only time they would still vote in that 1-year period in the 59th would be if there's a special election only.
Got it.
So we will keep track of those people manually in case there was a special election for the 59th.
So again, not putting you on the spot, I
Yeah, that's
completely understand the fluctuation with the budget. By chance, if we stay in a 2nd district,
Yeah.
you don't need to spend any of that money, can
That's
you use
right.
that money and use it for anything in the local?
No, because we won't know the local changes. We won't be implementing them until after the referendum passes. So that's in the 2022,
Got it. Makes sense.
2023 budget.
Makes sense. All right, well, again, you got to make an estimate, that makes sense.
The goal is to not move, is to move as few people as possible to accomplish the balance.
Sorry, last question, JFK will be online for voting? And-
Can we get to
Oh,
JFK
sorry, all right,
after?
well, I thought I read your
Hold that
notes.
question.
Hold that
You
question.
gave me notes beforehand, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay, you're welcome. Councilor Mangini?
Thank you for your time and your information. At what point do you think you'll be ready to disseminate the information regarding the changes to the public, to the council, to the town?
Well, to the liaison.
Yeah, right. Well, right after but our goal is to be able to present our recommendation to you in that first meeting, let's say June, or maybe the last meeting in May. I'm not sure when your budget implementation meeting is going to be.
But before that, we'll have heads up with the liaison.
Liaison should be
Assigned.
informing you guys
This is
of
what
what's
we
going
want to
on.
do. This looks like it's going to
Right.
happen this way. We'll
Right.
have information.
Right.
And then we'll put it
Yeah,
together.
do you want to get it out to the people ahead of time?
Yeah, you have all summer,
Okay.
just like any referendum question.
We have to have our
Yeah.
letters out 90 days in advance.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other question? Councilor Hopkins?
This is a smaller question, which comes out of.
I take those.
Sorry, this is a smaller question which comes out of some questions and concerns people have had, trying to figure out which voting district they fall in. The map we have is great. if people can take the time to kind of sit down and compare it to Google Maps that has the actual street names. I don't know if this is more of a question for you guys or more of a question for whatever town staff member ultimately plugs that stuff into GIS and produces a map that goes on our town website. But is there a way to do that that's most accessible and has all the street names, showing the district? I think that would be great if we
Yeah,
can do that.
we'll try.
We'll try, but
Yeah.
right now, if they go online, they can plug their address in and it'll pull up their districts, not on a map, but
It's difficult on the map. I guess we can talk to the people with the GIS to see if that's doable. I don't really know, Councilman Hockman, this time whether that's doable to drill down to that street. And believe me, I've been trying to do it, getting ready all the data for here, and I'm getting eye strain already. So I know,
thankfully,
understand how it's difficult.
we will be able to, instead of getting in the car, like in old days, and driving to a neighborhood and saying, okay, 1 house, 2 house, 3 house, there's 9 houses on this side, how many on that side, Lou? Okay, times our algorithm, all right, that's how many people live here. Now, we can do the same thing with Google Maps. So in the office, we can really make sure we don't miss any little, the house behind the house kind of thing, and we can get it done a little bit faster than in the old days, so that'll help us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just had one other item, Mr. Mayor,
Go
real
ahead,
quickly.
yes.
We wanted to give you an update on JFK, Councilman Ludwig. And before I do that, Councilman Mangini, it's good to see you again. You and I have done this once before. Yes, we have. Again, as you are aware, we temporarily moved the JFK polling location over to the senior center approximately 2 years ago because of the construction at that particular site. We have been notified by the chairman of the JFK Building Committee that we should be able to move back to JFK in August of 2022 this summer. At least that's the goal as of tonight. Thus, we are notifying you that it is our intention at this time to start investigating the actual movement back at that polling place. We will be meeting with the BOE and their staff sometime in their February meeting, and then after that, after discussing moving back to JFK, when they're going to go to the building and grounds to discuss the whole movement over there to make it for the August primary. I do want to tell you that if something happens and we cannot get in there for August, then we have to wait a whole year to be able to move back to JFK by
Can't split the two.
by federal election. We have to vote wherever the primaries are, has to be in the same building in November. So-
We're in every other week consultation with Randy about how things are going, if there's any weird things that have come up or that type of thing. Because we have a date that we have to send out our letters by, and we have to make that decision right before it. We're a go or we're a no. So if there's any changes, we'll update you. The other thing is the Pickens, our goal.
Yeah,
Our goal is to not use the Pickens Library anymore, if we can, with the new JFK layout. And we'll let you know if we can find room for that stuff right there on site. That'll free up the space for you.
so I guess we're just waiting for a liaison to eventually be assigned to us, and I
Yes.
guess if it's through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll touch base with you tomorrow, town manager, to see about a staff person to help us.
We will be in touch with the liaisons. How many? 2?
It could be 2. Actually, we really just need 1, but
Just one?
we
Okay.
we need at least
No,
1.
we should
How's
have-
that?
We should have
I
two.
just have one.
All right, one final question?
Yep, one,
Okay, so
okay. So,
we have 2 volunteers. Anybody else?
Do you have a question?
Okay,
No?
so, go ahead, Council, Deputy Mayor
I know
Sakala.
that we're out of time, so really quickly, JFK should be good to go. We just had a meeting, so we'll get an update. I think Lori's going to do it. And while you're talking to the BOE about going to JFK, please talk to them about going back to the front of Enfield Street, because being in the
Yeah.
back is stupid.
Yes. I mean,
Okay, thanks.
And I think we all know we know the problem is because they have all their storage of the teachers'
Yep.
items and the library
But
items
if you're going to
here.
be there in front of them, talking to
I
them
will
about
mention that again.
JFK, please tell them it
Yes.
is a detriment to be in the back of
Yes.
that
It's a
It's a
building.
huge pain for everybody, and
Well,
that's one of those nonpartisan complaints that's been.
Well,
Yeah, we know.
going
We
on.
understand.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
one final thing about Enfield Street School, about having the voting in the front of the building. I think it's, much more accessible, obviously. And let me tell you, the way that the parking lot is and the walkway, it's pretty treacherous
It is.
back there until things get fixed up back there.
Yep.
But
Talking on the back or the front?
the back is
We had the
worse than
front
the
fixed
front.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that part of it is good. I will say Counselor Ludwig and Counselor Mangini will be the 2 representatives.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. We'll
Welcome.
We'll get in touch with you guys once we get rolling here.
All right.
And again, we totally understand the Enfield Street. We don't really want to be in the back either, but I'm sure some of you understand why
Right.
we have been during COVID. And hopefully this November and August, it will get rectified, but we will, again, be exploring that again.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Greatly appreciate
Good
it.
to see everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
folks.
Thank you.